Hey everybody, we are here today with Inbaal, psychic, tarot reader, and witch. It's been a while since you've been on here. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much for inviting me. We always have so much fun together.
We do, and I think it was like, God, like 2.5 years ago now. It was a long time ago. I
The
can't believe
world
it's
was a
been that long.
very strange place then.
It was, and it's still kind of a strange place, just in different ways. It's just kind of a different kind of strange now. Um,
True.
but we've known each other for a while. You've been on here before, but you've also, I don't remember you teaching at the time. Did you teach at the time?
I had a really interesting period of thinking at the time that we had met and had done a little bit of online fun together, because I've always taught as a secondary thing because people come up to you, and you know that from being a practitioner yourself, people come up to you and they're interested in, they start with, is it possible to learn it? Is it just like a gift? Do you have to be born with it? And when I started reading, so that was like first of the first 2000, when I started reading professionally, it was less than a year later, I was already running courses. So I had a friend, close friend, she used to teach Wicca. And I loved her format. So I basically asked her permission and took her entire format wholesale. I booked a room on the same days that she was teaching her Wicca course in the same room complex. And I took her, I don't know if it's like a Pisces thing because we reflect things. Um, but I took her like course breakdown. It was like 6 meetings. Each one was 5 hours long. And I thought that sounds nice. That sounds nice and intense. So I kind of superimposed everything I knew about the tarot into those lessons. And I ran the first class, or the first intake, and it was phenomenal. It was so much fun. Now, my mom is a teacher, was a teacher for arts and crafts. My grandmother was a teacher in primary school until her retirement. One of my aunties is a kindergarten teacher. My best friend from school is a kindergarten teacher. So I've always really rejected the idea of teaching.
So
And
you've been
so
surrounded by it.
right. So it was such a weird feeling to stand in front of a classroom, but I knew it was exactly the right thing to do because it was a small room that we hired. And here in the UK, fire regulations are really, really strict. I don't know if it's because the houses are very old or rooms are very small. So within the fire regulations, we could have exactly 14 pupils in that classroom, no more, no less. It was, yes. And 2 days before the course started, we had 12. And, and it was amazing to have that many, to be nearly fully booked. And on the day we started, so I used to run it with my ex-partner. On the day we started, we had 14. And I thought, wow, I love it when signs come in numbers because you can't argue with numbers. So we had a maximum capacity of 14 pupils, and we had 14 pupils walk through the door that morning. That was a sign for me that teaching was certainly something that I needed to do. And I ran several intakes, some of them in that facility, some of them in my living room. I had small intakes where I would teach 4 people, and that was amazing as well. Some people would hire me to carry on the lessons and do one-on-one, and all of it was very, very satisfying, very exciting, because I found that the feeling of seeing somebody that you teach give like an absolute kick bum reading is as satisfying as having given that reading yourself. I remember the end of one course, it was like our second or third intake, and the um the man, and it was probably one of the least confident men on the course that time. He came from a very mainstream background. He was creative. He was a musician, but kind of an everyday person. You wouldn't pick him out. And he was giving a reading to a girl who was quite alternative. She was a writer. And he said to her, I can see some difficulties in your childhood. And she confirmed. And I said to him, I can see what you're seeing. Say it. Say it. I can see that you know it. And he said it. He said there was abuse in your childhood and he was frightened to say it, but she confirmed it was true. And I was so moved at the connection that they made, at being able to facilitate the knowledge that he used and to hold the energy for him. I say hold the energy, bully him into,
Like,
into sharing his gift. And that feeling was just incredible for me. And showing somebody how to open a door to something, to a skill, to a knowledge that was closed to them before was just such a rewarding experience. So about 3 years later, during one of my holidays to my mom and dad's flat, I took an older, cheaper laptop with me and typed up a correspondence course that held to the same format. It was 6 lessons. It was 30 pages per lesson. It was the exact same conversational format. So even though I typed it up, it would start exactly the same. You know, each lesson would be like, right, look at the card and tell me what you can see. Tell me which colors you're relating to. Why is the little girl talking to the little boy? Why is the eagle in the corner? Just come up with something creative. And that is my correspondence course, which is now going strong 21 years. And it's not something that I have a new pupil for it every single month.
yeah.
Some years there'll be 20 people coming through, some years there'll be two, but it still exists. And when about 3 years ago, the time came to film a video course, that old course was the foundation for the video course. So in one way, I think I've kept it I've kept it really boring and really uncreative in latching on to a format of teaching, to a method of teaching that worked for me in one format and kind of converted it to another format and now to a third. But I also feel like I gave so much thought and focus to creating that structure early on that it kind of proved itself throughout. So where I teach now, so that was the crisis I had during the pandemic. I didn't use the word crisis before, but we're being frank, so why not? During the pandemic, I did a lot of running. I was running.
Mhm.
And I kept getting messages that I need to move forward. I need to move things forward. And I was thinking, I was kind of new to social media. And I thought, well, there's actually so many practitioners here. So where do I stand out? What's so special about me? What's special about me is that I'm giving you the wrong answer first, is that I did a lot of TV and a lot of magazines. Maybe that's special. But really, in the world of social media, having your face on a screen is much less the currency of what it was 20 years before. So that wasn't the right answer. So I kept running, I kept running. And then I figured, wait, my special thing is that I have been doing this at the time for over 20 years. Most of the practitioners that I'd met on social media were still potty training 20 years ago. And that's no disrespect to
No,
anyone younger than me.
true.
No, a big fan of your skin, big fan of, of how you carry yourself, big fan of how you stand up to corporations. But that is to say that anyone who has been doing it for less time than me, or anyone that has had fewer clients than me, might want to come to me with questions. And that's when I kind of put it together. And I said to a friend of mine, hi, if you're watching, you know who you are, start with a T. I said to a friend of mine at the time, do you know, I really think that I should just sort of put together like an idea for mentoring, just in case somebody has questions about their practice, whether it's figuring out how to do the tarot, what two cards mean together, or how to set up your prices, or how to set up your channel, or what kind of persona you need to put out there into the world. I'm going to make this very, very quick. Don't book a lesson to ask me about the persona. Your authentic persona is the only one that works. Save, save
No,
your money, save your thinking.
I agree.
Right?
No,
You know it.
I agree. I
Authentic.
remember starting doing videos, but almost 4 years ago now, and I was trying to do something, not trying to be some way that I'm not, and I was like, oh fuck this. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, no, no. I was like,
Yeah, exactly. You've got to go through the wrong answer before you get to the right answer. But I said to my friend, you know, I really think I want to do some mentoring. And he was like, when are you free? I want to book you for an hour. So
ah.
that was immediately that, and that's somebody close to me, somebody that speaks to me every day, somebody who I know is excellent at his job, excellent at his job. But he had some questions that he didn't want to ask me conversationally, casually, because they're professional questions. So he booked an hour. So now I kind of have the two channels, the course, which is self-study and is wonderful for like the younger generation that love learning everything at home, from home, you know, near their coffee machine. I see yours is a cold one, mine is a hot one. Cheers.
Yeah, it's cooler here today than it has been, but it's still warm. So
Yeah, it hasn't stopped raining here since the last time I saw you. The tan is because I got on an airplane, but it hasn't stopped raining here. Our garden is a swimming pool now. So I've got the course, which is, you know, as little or as much interaction as you want. The course, you watch the lessons, you learn by yourself, you come to me with questions. And or you don't come to me with questions and figure it out. You know, it's fine. It's there. It's perfect for the introvert, it's perfect for the extrovert. And what's nice about a course, because you know that, because you've put a study, you know, study method together, people can enter it at any level.
yes,
So right? Even if you already know a lot, it's nice to jump in, polish up your basics, and then, you know, just learn the extra sort of half level to level that you've got missing. So I've got that. And then I've got the mentoring, which I'm really so passionate about. I didn't realize that I would enjoy it as much as I enjoy it. So if you know me, I fly by the seat of my pants. That's my Sagittarius moon, obviously. So I will turn up to almost anything as underprepared as possible. Not not so much for like, you know, filmed interviews like what we're doing, but even when I used to work like on live TV, I can put liquid liner on the London Underground.
wow, that's impressive.
It's not perfect, it's not perfect, but now this generation knows that the camera doesn't catch everything. You can cheat the camera in the way that you can't cheat face to face. And so if the eyeliner is a little bit off, the camera's not going to pick up on it.
Yeah.
So I come underprepared to absolutely everything. So when I started mentoring, I had notebook, like a nice thick notebook, special pen, and lots of like random papers. And so I would mentor the person and, you know, a bit like a therapist, sort of make notes so that I know what we've caught up with, what we talked about, and kind of file it. That notebook has got 2 years of dust on it. I used it like for maybe the first 3 months because jumping into mentoring, I talk about stuff I already know. It's like sitting at a passport interview. You know, what's your name? I can ace that question. When were you born? There's another easy one. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel when I mentor. So just last night, I was doing my YouTube show that you guested on, and somebody, and then you were so amazing. I really loved you. And one of the viewers who are mostly working psychics themselves, had sent in a comment about teaching. And she said that, and very correctly, she said that you can learn the tarot, but you've got to be able to intuit well alongside it because they work hand in hand. I was in the middle of giving a reading, but because what she said is like literally my line of expertise, I was able to carry on the reading, the filmed on-screen reading for a friend, like a demonstration, while answering to her. And what I said to her, and I think you'll agree, is that while you're learning sort of a psychic skill, a psychic method, you're also developing your intuition, and that goes hand in hand as well. So it doesn't negate. It's not like you're learning one and you're kind of neglecting the other. On the contrary, they work together. But I thought that's actually really funny because I'm there fully unprepared, doing a reading with somebody that we haven't decided what we're going to do a reading on, because I thought, well, it's giving a tarot reading. It's something I do, thousands of times a week. And then talking about what is probably my favorite topic, except for my kids. I can talk very easily about my kids. So I now find the mentoring to be so natural. When people ask me questions, it's like they ask me the easiest questions they could ask me. So the mentoring is now totally free form, totally unstructured. I've got a couple of girls that basically do the whole tarot course with me. So we go card by card by card by card and have like the personal interaction. So it's, so it's a lot more special than doing the video course, but it's along the same lines. And then I've got some who don't know what they want before they sit down, and I don't know what they want before they sit down. And then I'll be like, can we put together maybe a money spell? Sure, of course, without even having to worry about it. Also, all the books are here if I need extra
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah.
And then I've got one girl, I don't want to say favorite because I don't have favorites, but I relate to her method so much because she comes to me with notes of readings that she's given all week. And she's like, let's go over those readings. I'll tell you what I said, and you critique what I said. And I love that because she's like me. She's just, taking her deck of cards, doing readings, and then where she has me is to reflect back on everything that she's done and to assimilate kind of a further lesson. So she's like learning without having to learn, if you know what I mean. She's letting the cards teach her. So at the moment, the mentoring is a great source of joy for me because it's so unstructured, but it has the structured element of seeing the same face regularly. Because I
Yeah.
think in my work, the same as your work, sometimes you won't see somebody more than once every 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Or once a year or something. Yes. And it is no, I know what you mean about the structure of seeing somebody. Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. So that's where the teaching came in. I would say it kind of caught me by surprise, but I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. Please go ahead, catch me by surprise. Be my guest.
No, I know what you mean when you start doing something and you enjoy it more than you thought you would.
Yes,
Not that you didn't think you'd enjoy it, you just enjoy it a lot more than you originally.
exactly, because I love doing tarot readings. There's no better way for me to pay my mortgage. Do you know what I mean? If I had to pick a job out of all the jobs possible, including if a job existed of, laying on the beach for a living, I would still pick tarot readings. I get so much joy out of it. I love the nitty gritty, figuring out how he feels and what his mom said to someone else and what is coming up. So for me, I didn't think that the teaching would be as much fun as the reading. And I was kind of fearful going into it, but it really was, and it really is,
Yes.
you
About
know.
let me ask about teaching.
Yeah.
How do you handle difficult I mean, I know in that one example, it was just like, just do it, is that kind of like if a student of yours isn't sure how to approach something difficult,
Yeah,
because when you read for people, I know when I do astrology readings, difficult things can come up, and it's like
yeah.
how do you recommend people approach that? I guess it also depends on the kind of difficult thing they're seeing or picking up on.
Let me tell you, first of all, if the difficulty is in actually sort of seeing the situation or finding out the situation, I believe that truth begat truth. So you can say some stuff that's really, really obvious. So, let's say you've got the sun card and you just go, I can see new beginnings
Mhm.
coming up right now. It's really obvious, but you're sensing that there is a little extra something there. Keep describing the obvious, because the truth will feel so comfortable and at home in your mouth that it'll call some more truth in. I know it sounds really, really insane to describe it like that, but I really feel that when you connect with something that is true, with something that is factual, then more things that are factual will just kind of jump up in your psychic brain, which is activated via handling the tarot, but not just the tarot, crystal ball, oracle cards. I feel like they all work as kind of an antenna or as like a link between you and your psychic brain. And funnily enough, I used to think that astrology was not one of those things, and boy was I wrong.
It it definitely no, but I know that there are a lot of people that don't think that it is, and I think astrology is kind of in a different, well, I mean, it's in the same realm, but there is sort of a technicality to, I think it puts it in a weird space. It can be, but I mean, personally, I take a very intuitive approach to reading. Absolutely. And kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if the difficulty is in seeing things, then I feel like keep talking and keep looking. So you'll think, I'm sure there's something else in that card, but I don't know exactly what it is. Start describing other corners, the things that jump up. I can see there's a lot of green in this card. Could it be connected with, say, the heart chakra? Were there issues with the heart? Just warm to it, warm to your topic. If you see topics that are difficult for you to approach, that's a whole topic, because first of all, when difficult things come up in your clients' readings, very often it's a message for you. So if you have repeated clients where you have to say to them, your partner has to go to therapy, otherwise the relationship won't survive. Repeated, you've got days of it based on a true story. Then the message is there for you. So pay attention, listen as you're talking, because, and this is the good news, once you've accepted the message yourself, once you've internalized the message that is there for you, it's going to stop appearing. So you won't need to deal with it publicly, blushing in front of strangers. So listen to the message, it might be for you. In terms of knowing how to say things in a way that the client would accept with love and not as judgment, let the tarot do the talking. Leave yourself out of it completely. Such a beautiful tool for getting rid of the ego as much as is possible. Not completely, none of us is perfect, but to put the ego to one side is to lose your own voice as you're doing the reading and let the tarot do the talking. Because if we're discussing, for example, abuse, there are thousands of cards that can represent that. A
Yeah,
thousand out of
yeah.
78. There are thousands of cards that could represent that. You've got, for me, the Nine of Swords is very indicative of a parent or a teacher that always told you you can't. So that's a type of emotional abuse. I see the potential for sexual abuse in the Six of Cups, which is, such a cute, jolly card, but, with a little girl, or is she an old lady? Mm.
I get, yeah,
Um,
I can see what you're, yeah.
And the abuse, I actually remember very, very acutely the abuse from that old story that was in the devil card. Like there was no escaping it. It was right there in the middle with his hairy legs and his bare chest. So let the tarot do the talking, because when conveying that message to the person who was really ready to talk about it, it was the devil. It was saying somebody took advantage of you, physically subjugated you, and made you feel old before it was the time for you to learn how to be that old. But if it comes in the Six of Cups, then the words that go with it would be, you always felt a little bit suspicious as a child. You didn't know which adults to trust. Now, we could be describing the same situation. We could even be describing it to the same person, but at different points in their life, at different points of them dealing with the post-traumatic stress. And therefore, the words that the tarot gives you, the tarot, the words that the tarot gives me, I'm sure you as well, will suit that exact occasion. And you've got to have a lot of trust. You've got to have a lot of faith to give over your agency to a deck of cards to do the talking for you. But it's, for me, the most accurate and the safest way to do it, because you're not overthinking it and going, if I said, say, I've had that with somebody in the past, like at the start of my route, somebody who I believed would feel quite freaked out if I had told him that he was gay because
Oh,
of how he presented. But I panicked about it. And so I had to kind of find my own words to dance around and say, I see a lot of feminine qualities, and I see that girls are always drawn to you to come and talk to you. But even then, I would have probably used the same words because those were the words in the card, but doing that without the panic, so
yeah.
much nicer, so much easier. But that's really where experience comes in. And that's really the role of a mentor, because that was like, a real gold standard question when it comes to mentoring, because it's not just about stuff from the past or even the present. A lot of times you've got to say to somebody, the relationship is not going to survive. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you probably get that in astrology more so than tarot.
yes, you do. Yeah, and in that case, I'm not looking at cards, right? So I don't have the cards to kind of guide me on what to say. What I'll do is I'll look at their chart and I'll be like, okay, can this person handle me just being like, look it, this is what it is, or do I need to use, does it need to go down with some sugar, some sugar first, not lying or anything, but just softening, trying to pat it a little bit.
I think just blame it on the planets. You go, look what Jupiter is doing to your marriage.
It's fucking your marriage.
It's not giving you a chance. You're fighting a losing battle that Jupiter has no interest in supporting you. It's withdrawn all support. But yeah, I'm sorry. I know it's a real coward's way, but funnily enough, that was how we had to do it on TV. So because there's, again, it's like it's UK laws and they might be different to US laws, but because the laws and rules around psychics stem from the laws and rules around the Fraudulent Mediums Act, which was the laws that replaced the Witchcraft Act, because witchcraft
Ah,
was illegal, because selling snake oil, because
yeah.
it was seen as something unscientific, unprovable. And so how can you charge for it? You'd be very likely to dupe people with it. And those rules were there to protect a much more innocent society. So some dregs of them remain. And so because of those, when you kind of cross-section them with broadcasting rules, when we're on TV, we couldn't say I see in your future, even if I see in your future, but you had to say, you had to use like the passive voice, I'm being shown, or so much safer, this card means that. And even though it came from a real roundabout kind of backwards way, I still find that it's a good habit to have because instead of being, you know, a big important psychic on a platform with the vision, you're sharing with them where you're seeing it. And what's interesting is that sometimes I'll be like, well, what this card says is that you're trying to put together two different careers and it's proving too difficult. And they'll be like, well, maybe that's not me, but what else can this card mean? And then we can pick up on the exact point where the reading has departed from the bond, backtrack on it, and find what the card actually means for that person. And then you're on the golden path to doing like a meaningful reading. Whereas if you're standing on a platform and you're saying, well, what I'm seeing for you is the career, blah, 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 they can just sort of be like, yes or no. I find that sort of anchoring it in the planet, in a house, in an element, in the artwork, puts the client as, you know, as a co-pilot themselves.
Yeah, and then yeah, and it gets them more involved and it gets a conversation going. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say as far as mentoring goes? What would you say are some of the other common things to be asked about or for somebody to come? Well, I mean, I know they're coming to you just in general too, but is there anything specifically that people seem to always want you to help them with?
Absolutely. So specifically with tarot, it's taking the words and turning them into a sentence.
Ah, yeah.
They can see, right? So it must be the same in astrology, you know, because this planet and that planet, but what does it mean together? So one of my simplest readings, spreads, are my relationship spreads. So I'll take 5 cards for the person in front of me, 5 cards for the person that they're thinking about, and then I don't know if I can explain it easily. Let me show it visually.
Okay.
So I'm going to hold 2 rows of cards very chaotically and gingerly.
It's okay.
So let's say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one line, one,
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, second line.
And one is one
So
person, one is the other person.
exactly. So cards 1 and 6, one is so the first one of the first row, the first one of the second row would represent this person at the very beginning and then that person at the very beginning. Card number 3, escaping there, 3 and 8.
Uh-huh.
So the middle one at the top and the middle one at the bottom represent right now for this person, right now for the other person. And card number 5 and card number 10 would represent the ultimate outcome, the end of the story for the first person and for the second person, and the others are in between. So what we've got is like a time flow of what the relationship is like for the first person from the beginning to the very end, and the very end could be, you know, old age and still being together, but it spreads it out from the beginning to the end, the whole narrative. And then below, we have the narrative the way it appears in the eyes of the other person. And when you look at them one by one, it's a fun reading anyway. But when you can go into it and swim in the reading and find the patterns and find the connections and see, for example, sometimes you get kind of a crisscross where you're starting out with a wonderful card for the first person, a dreadful card for the second person, and then they kind of switch. So you have a wonderful card for the first person and a very awful card for the second, then they switch again. Then this would be a relationship where their pattern is that one person goes through a crisis and the other one pulls them up, and then it turns again. So they're always pulling each other out of crises. That doesn't sound so fun, but if you put that in comparison with two people that started sort of really happy, say met at a festival, met on the beach in Greece, and then got home and one lost their job and one, God forbid, lost a parent, and then they created a kind of trauma bond. That is even worse because if you've got both of them kind of diving under, so that, that's really sort of just like specific examples, but where people come to me for mentoring very, very commonly is in being able to see each card for what it means and translate it accurately, but struggle to find the patterns and struggle to find the and, struggle to find the or, struggle to find the but. And I really think that the essence of the reading and the wow factor, from, speaking from the ego here about the wow factor, the wow factor exists in those buts, in those ands, in those howevers, because when you see a pattern, you can already describe the relationship to the person in the words they would describe it to you. And then when you see a break in the pattern, a deviation from the pattern, then you found their crisis. Then you found the reason why they're even sitting in front of you. And that is that is the pain that you've got to jump in, and this is what you're there to solve. So a big part of the mentoring is showing people how to look at the bigger picture first. Don't look at the cards one by one. Tell me how many wands you've got here. If we're looking at 10 cards and 8 of them are wands,
I
then
totally.
we want to, we want to refer to that. Sometimes you get people that I'll look at their kind of general reading, 11 cards. It's a Celtic cross with one extra one on top, and say 6 or 7 of them are major arcana. And you know how much I love Sagittarians. That is those people, big personality. Sometimes you'll have a lot of overthinking swords cards, and that would be people who were gifted the curse of judging themselves from since they were small. So I show people how to initially look at the bigger picture.
And then zone in over, oh, after taking the, yeah.
Exactly. And even when you're zoning in, look for those patterns. If you've got, in one corner, it doesn't even look like an important corner, but you're looking at the 7, the 8, and the 9 of swords. What is that pattern telling you? What is that, 1 + 1 = 2? There's something there. It doesn't always mean the same, but it does mean that you need to focus on it. Or let's say there's only like, 3 cards with eagles in them. If all of them are lounging in one area, let's see, why it's there.
That makes, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool that yeah, and you get to help show them how to do that. I think that that's amazing.
I think everyone has the ability. And where I get the sense of excitement is when I don't tell them the answer and I can clock that they're really, really close. And I'll be like, just look one more time, one more time. I'll tell you if you don't. Just look one more time. And they'll be like, is it a job in a school? Is that what these things mean together? I was like, yeah, bam, a job in a school, exactly.
And you
Or I don't know, marry an Aquarius,
Mary,
exactly.
and you feel so proud for them, like
Yes.
of them for them. And it's like you should be proud of yourself too.
Yeah, I think it's incredible because I do honestly believe that everyone has an ability, that everyone has a psychic gift, just like everyone except for very, very tiny percentages can speak, just like how everyone except for very, very tiny percentages can crawl. Everyone except for very, very tiny percentages can zone in and find the psychic path for themselves. So really all you're doing is, removing the mask from their eyes.
So they can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Is there anything else that you notice they come to you a lot, wanting to be mentored on, or what about like, okay, let me ask this, pricing. I know that that can be a difficult thing for people to put a price tag on what they do.
No, it is. It's really, really hard. I have my little formula and I've got like a very small YouTube about it. Um, but not everybody, finds it easy to process numbers in front of a YouTube. It can be a real point of panic for some people. But I know that just from my experience, if I put in an 8-hour workday,
Mhm.
so equivalent um to a day job,
Uh-huh.
and I say that from a position of very little knowledge because it's been years since I had a day job. Years. It's been 20, my goodness me, yeah, 23, 24 years since anybody else paid my mortgage for me.
That's awesome,
Um,
by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of fun and it does take a certain amount of pig-headedness. I am doing this. I am doing this.
Uh-huh.
Everything flies. No, I am doing this. I had at the beginning, I had a landlord that was just not that bothered whether I paid him or, not. So I paid when I could and then like doubled it up when, so that was, a little bit of luck going in. And also, while we're on the subject, I would like to acknowledge my privilege for the world that I live in, the fact that I grew up in a comfortable household where I was honored and respected, the fact that I grew up in an environment where people who looked like me were part of the ruling majority plays a part, and I absolutely cannot deny it. But with that, I also had sort of quite a few other lucky breaks. And, if you try to do things, dear viewer, you'll find that you have lucky breaks too, because the road rises to meet you when you don't give it other options. Um,
That's true. Very true.
but in terms of pricing, so I think we've got the, I suppose, very westernized, very ordinary 8-hour working day, but I'll take it just as kind of a model to have like an equalizer. So if I look at an 8-hour working day, I know that some of the hours or some of the minutes I work are paid hours, and some of the hours are posting on Instagram or reading an astrology book or taking a course that teaches me how to put together a website. So there's many hours that are not paid for that are still working in your business. In my experience, when starting out, you probably have 1 hour of paid work inside every 8 because you have to push so much and you have to make the connections and you have to learn so much and create your community. So that 1 hour has to pay you a 7-hour wage.
Uh-huh.
Ironically, the more experience you have, you build a client base. And so I know that where I'm at the moment, it's more between say an hour and a half to 2 hours out of an 8-hour day. I'm recalculating it because really my children are at school 6 hours, so it's like a 6-hour day. And for people who also have a day job, it'll be different. But again, sort of using 8 hours an equalizer, it's more like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So you need for what you charge for that 1 hour and a half to 2 hours to cover an 8-hour working day. So I don't know what do people get on average for an 8-hour working day in the US? Would it be like, I don't know.
I don't, I'm not sure. But like, you mean, I'm honest, I'm
You know
honestly
what? Let's Google that.
that's kind of sad. I live here and I have no idea.
Average daily wage before tax USA.
What is it?
Oh,
What is it?
hourly. Sorry, it says hourly about $30.
Really?
Um, yeah. Oh no, all-time high.
I was gonna
July
say for real.
2024, it's more like the average hourly earnings for all employees is 11.19. Yeah, I don't know who this guy is from the $30 an hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds really, that's nice. It sounds really high though. But okay.
Yeah, so let's go with the 11, let's go that sounds a little bit more realistic, especially that we're talking about starting a business. So we're looking at about $100 per day, $120 per day for an 8-hour working day before tax. Remember that once you take tax away, then that leaves a little bit less. So if you're putting in an 8-hour day, you need for about an hour and a half of it to cover those $100. That means that your half-hour reading, if you do a half hour, should be around $45
Okay.
to reach the equal wage of somebody who makes $11 an hour. So it sounds to people sort of looking at your price list, they're like, how can you be like $90 an hour? How can you be like $110 an hour? You're not a lawyer. How much did you study for it? But actually, that hour that you're being paid for covers all the hours of learning, of putting together a business, of submitting your accounts, which you would do by yourself, of going out and taking nice pictures, of catching up with people within the community, of being on each other's YouTube
Yeah.
show. um, and for me, the secret to the pricing is seeing all of those unpaid hours. Now, it's complicated because I have in the past paid for a reading with somebody who I didn't realize was at the start of her way. And the reading was not very good. It was not very experienced, but I paid for it the same as what everybody else was charging at the time because her pricing didn't reflect her inexperience. So I think we live, in a world of over information. We're saturated with information. So have a look at what other people charge to place yourself, but also look at how much experience they're bringing in, how much of a good reputation they already carry, and then place yourself in comparison with that, which is not easy because I think people in this world tend to be sort of quite modest. So don't overshoot, don't undershoot. Find somebody who's got a similar level of experience and emulate the price structure. Obviously, again, you've got to remember everybody's different privileges. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's in a different industry, but also self-employed. I was talking to her just about a month ago about somebody who has been doing really, really well in this space. Um, and I said to her, I really don't know how she put together such a big business with so little experience. I said, is she married to somebody who makes a lot of money? And my friend said, oh yeah, I know her. She doesn't need to work at all. And I'm like, okay. So the playing field is not level. The playing field is not level.
And that's a really important thing to bring up because yeah. That is something that I think sometimes gets left out of the equation or gets when considering this sort of thing. It can, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And just like any um, art or any entertainment, it's worth what you say it's worth. And there are situations where people who are happy to pay more will pay more and maybe have you come all the way to their houses so that they're paying for the extra convenience, for your petrol, for you to sort of take a day off and drive over there, sort out your childcare. And there are situations where people will approach you and say, what have you got for free? Have you got anything for free at the moment? There's different ways to ask. There's some ways that get you blocked forever. And there's some ways
Yeah.
and there's some ways that get you saying, well, actually, I need someone for a demonstration. Do you want to be my guinea pig? And then, you get your reading for it. And, for me, I just speak from my own experience. When I left my first TV job, I thought, well, I need to have people know my email. That's how long ago it was. I need to have people sort of know my email so they can find me online. So I would give one free reading, one free question for any person that asked. And that's the same. This is now more than 20 years. That's the same mailing list that I still have now. I kept it going for 3 years, but one time I was on a TV show. I don't know if you have it in the US. It's Most Haunted, and it's like a ghost hunting show. It's so fabulous. It's so fabulous. Like the big guy that started it, he's no longer with us, but he really sort of popularized mediumship in the UK and really sort of helped normalize it. It was kind of caught on like fakery and stuff, but a great rise, great fall, flew too close to the sun. But I went on it not even as a psychic. They had an episode where they went ghost hunting after Matthew Hopkins, the witchfinder general, the man who convicted and got so many witches hanged. I think it was like in the 1600s. So I just sort of came in to talk about witchcraft. I had.
Seen a clip of this.
Did you see?
I think I have. Yes, I'm pretty sure I have. Yes.
I had about 65 seconds of screen time. It was such a fun experience, and they used my profile on the main web page of that program. And so the next morning I had 300 requests for the one free question, and it took me like 3 weeks to get through them. And yeah, it wasn't long after that I stopped. And then until just recently, I spent all my Sunday evenings doing free readings on Instagram, which was a lot of fun, but super draining.
Yeah, I imagine that but no, I remember I remember that. And yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. It was a great community as well, because everybody watching were like hyping each other up and sort of getting excited if somebody sort of went for a job interview. It was, lots of good lucks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the community doing things like that. Is that something that you also kind of mentor people or kind of guide people to do, that kind of a thing? Like or is that I mean, that might not be forever.
No. This is such a great question, and this answer is really going out for people who are new to this space. People who have been around for a while, you don't need to hear this, you already know this. But I have like a mentor who teaches like how to put courses together and stuff. I love her. She's fabulous. She's from the north of England. It's all about, waking up early in the morning and working hard. And she leaves me messages going, just do it, just do the thing, eat the frog.
Frog.
And yeah, I'll give you her details. She's fabulous. So there was another tarot reader in that
Oh,
space, and she was fairly new, and she said, how do I get clients? And I said to her, what you're looking for is not clients, it's a community, because to a greater or lesser extent, the community supports the community. I'm a tarot reader. That already means that I, as a human being, as a part of the economy, believe that tarot readings are a valid way to help make decisions. And so when it's time for me to make decisions, I pay my money to other tarot reader, to other, astrologers, to other, to healers, to anybody that can be. So the whole community is kind of its own microeconomy. So I said to her, if you're new around, you don't need to go around looking for people to book you. No, look for people to communicate with, to exchange ideas with. Look for friends who believe in the same stuff that you do. And that will kind of kickstart your path in that, because as part of the economy, you and I have exchanged very, very little in way of actual cash. But, and that's just like one example, two girls in a very, very big space. But I have recommended you to so many people because I personally know you. So if somebody says to me, do you know a really good astrologer? I'll be like, boy, do I know a really good astrologer. Absolutely. And so I said to that girl, just make yourself present, make yourself available, either create your own community or join a community. Anyway, she did not like the question and actually left the entire mentoring program within a few days. And I thought, no, I know we talked a lot right at the start about getting the wrong answer before you get the right answer. That was the right answer, right, Ellie?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, 'cause that is such an important, I think it's very important too, to either, well, really, I think it can be useful to do both, creating your own community, but yet also bringing, going into others or being invited into others or, yeah, just
absolutely. And not just sort of stepping in and going, how do I get people to book me? You know what? You don't. If you want to have, if you want to have the guaranteed work coming in, join a phone line,
yeah,
join a psychic fair. I was with a psychic fair for the first 3 years of my career. It was hard work. It was the best way to start. It was the best way to start. It was with my little bag, driving. No, it was before I could drive in this country. Riding the tube up and down all around the outskirts of London, dangerous places. 11 p.m. we would finish, and I'd be sort of tottering to catch the last train home. But that was like the best boot camp because it I worked alongside other psychics, and being in that energy was just, it was mind blowing when there would be queues of people coming to us. So if you need a ready-made client base, that exists in the way of existing monetized communities, that exists in the way of phone lines. I really recommend that people start with phone lines because you have, the people coming in and you learn and you improve and you build relationships without having to advertise, without having to be like a whiz on Instagram. But
yeah,
if
because that
you
shit's hard.
want,
The social media shit being seen can be hard. I mean, other avenues like
so
phone lines or like psychic fairs or, yeah.
exactly, because in a psychic fair, you're one of seven. On a phone line, you're one of 30 who are on shift at the time. In social media, you're a speck of dust. And it doesn't matter if you're, a stunning, well-connected speck of dust. It's still very, very minor, very, very minute. Now, I believe that in order to have longevity in the business, you do have to be present, but you're not present on your own. Nobody wants to look at some self-important, pompous person that tells them how things are. You want to be around people who are relatable, sharing your vibe, aligned with your values, and that comes from a community, but that also creates a community, in my opinion.
I agree.
Thank
I agree with that
you.
very
Thank you.
much. One question, because you brought, going to people's houses, right? And like working psychic fairs and having other people in your energy, you're in their energy. I remember
Yeah.
I haven't worked, it's been a while since I've worked a fair. It was a couple of years ago, the last one I did, but how do you recommend people protect themselves? Or do you recommend that people protect or what do you know what
I,
I'm
I absolutely do. So I've got my little chakra meditation on YouTube. Sorry, children just come back from school. I've got my little chakra meditation, and at the very end of it, so I recommend before you start work, you open your chakras. When you finish work, you close your chakras, and then I think a very important part of it is cover yourself in an imaginary cloak of your favorite color. Pull the hood over your eyes, make it really cozy. I have an actual, like, real life purple shimmery cloak. So I visualize that cloak. It's all the way to the floor. You're protecting it. So that's your first layer of protection. And then you use the golden egg shape covering you all around so that nothing can penetrate it. And that is, for me, the two layers of defense. That coupled with your chakras being closed, and that means that you're not picking up on random energy everywhere, that will leave you more or less protected. As an aside, and I touched on it before, if there are any messages that you haven't given for whatever reason, if you thought it's not the right moment, or I feel embarrassed to say that, those messages will stay with you and inside you until you give them. Enjoy that awful journey. Love that for you.
So
So say everything, let everything out so that you're empty by the time you're closing.
that is very good. That is very good advice. When
Thank
you
you.
said that your kids just got back, right?
Yes.
I will let you. We will stop this here because I know they're. But
But you know, if you invite me, I'll come again.
I will invite you.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed this very much. Thank you so much for sharing and for talking with me. And where can you be found?
Yeah, I am the easiest person to find as long as you spell my name right. So if you can see my name, I don't know exactly how it films it.
It may or may not come up. I see it on my end, but I don't know if it's. Go and share it.
Right, but it'll surely be in the title spelled correctly. So if you can spell my name correctly, it's very easy to find me. I'm inbaal.com. I'm inbaal@hotmail.com. I'm inbaal@gmail.com. I'm Inbaal Psychic on all the different platforms. However, I do have a lot of imposters. So if you aren't sure if it's me or not, go via the website, because there's just a lot less impostering in the website space and a lot more in the social media space.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that Ellie will put a link so that you can click straight through. If you're unsure, come to the DMs, chit chat with me, and and see if I sound like a real person, or or not.
If there's any of that, hello, Grand Rising stuff that people that the imposter,
Yes.
they all do
Y-
that.
I know. I know. If I was in the impostering business, the first thing I would do is cancel Grand Rising as a phrase.
I
Remove it
know.
completely.
Yeah, because that's how they all like anytime
Yeah.
people have done imposters of me and people have shown me what they've said, it always starts out with that. I'm like, I don't even fucking talk like that.
No, who does? Who does? I really feel like all the scammers should bandy together and just get themselves some relationship training. And the first thing relationship trainer will say is just start with a hi. Just start with a hi. Just like the first lesson of like dating, just start with a hi. Don't overthink it. Just a hello will do.
No, I agree. Well, we'll go ahead and head off. But again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And yeah, I can't wait to do this again.
Yes, we will have to do this again.
Thank you.
All right. And for everybody else, I will see you all later.